Welcome to the Unfinished Work Show. I am Mike Lake, and this is episode 16. And today we're going to talk about presence. What does your presence say about you before or as you enter a room? Is it weak and it's fleeting and people don't really realize you're there? Is it big and all-encompassing? Do you change the mood of a room? When you enter that room, does the vibe change? Is it positivity or do you bring negativity? Presence is that thing that it kind of speaks when you don't even have to. And once you show up, people kind of know what to expect as you enter the room. So we're going to talk about that today. So what made me think of this was this past week in church, I was actually sitting up in the front like I normally do because I get distracted really easy. I have ADD or is it ADHD? Whatever it is. See, I just did it there. But I get distracted really easy. So I like to sit up closer to the front. It engages me. It's that thing that teachers used to try to do to me as a student. I kind of do it to myself to help me stay locked in. But sitting up there in the particular section that I sit in, the pastors actually come sit right there so they can bounce up onto the stage. The church I go to, Grace Family, has several pastors, and each week there's usually one that kind of tees up everything with an announcement and then announces the person who's doing the sermon for that week. What does this have to do with the Unfinished Work Show and the work we're doing here? It kind of made me think, one, I know when I'm entering into the sanctuary, even me, the way I carry myself changes. Generally speaking, I might be a little carefree, a little easygoing, but as I enter into the sanctuary, I just feel, for one, the presence of God. But generally speaking, I feel that my presence needs to be turned up a certain way to be, I guess what I would feel like. I just grew up in a Baptist church where once we're here to worship and have fun and celebrate and all of that. But also there's a certain level of respect that's commanded about myself once I enter into that space. So I walk in, shoulders broad, head high. I'm very nice and cordial. I speak to everybody that I come into any kind of contact with. But as I approach my seat in the front, I have this just air about me to understand that I know why I'm here. I'm here to do work. And anyway, back to my point. So the pastors, so as they come in, they kind of greet me. I'm just sitting there. I'm sitting in the front row. I usually sit in the second row, but this particular week I was sitting in the front. And as they come in, and they just pop in, they see your boy, they say, "What's up?" So one of the pastors walk in. He hadn't seen me in a while. He probably, "Oh, hey man, how you doing?" Dap me up. And this guy, he's a little bit younger. He has a nice vibe about him. He's the teen pastor actually over at the church, but he has like a cool, like a carefree, like, oh, we vibing like brothers almost, if I had to give it a peer ranking. And, you know, we just say what's up, we speak, and we get back to what we were doing, which at that time we were worshiping. The choir was singing. Next pastor walk in, other pastor who was preaching that particular week. And he sits down. He speaks to everybody that's around him. He has like a star quality about him, if I had to describe it in any certain way, where people kind of gravitate toward, like definitely their eyes gravitate toward him, but also just his presence. He has a real big presence, real personable guy on stage, on and off. But as he sat down, he's more like a big brother, a little bit older than me. And he says, "Hey," you know, we dap each other up, and I toss him a little joke. He laugh, whatever. Third pastor walk in, he's like the lead pastor, a little bit older. He'd be like, he's maybe 10 years or so younger than my dad. But then when he walk in, him being the campus pastor, his energy is a little bit different. So these three guys, and I will say they're all three they're all three black males, such as myself. And I only make that point to say this so you can just have a vision of what's happening here. Like me, as I grew up in the church, but in my current state, I would say that I'm more of like, I'm in the process of building and learning how to move in the space. And I'm watching these guys and I'm more like proud in a way, but it's interesting just how, as they show up, keep in mind, none of these interactions are major. They're just quick little hays and highs and whatever. These guys are there, they're doing their work. But their presence, the vibe that comes with them changed as each one entered the room. And that's what struck this thought into my mind about presence. Like, what does your presence say about you when you show up? So as it relates to your progress here, our progress here, as we do more work here on the Unfinished Work Show, I don't want you to think that I don't want you to think that this is just some way to be or act like out of character. I think the goal of what I'm trying to present here, and I'll depict it as we go through the episode, is that your presence oftentimes it actually colors how you move. So say like, I grew up working in call centers in my early younger days in my 20s. And one thing they used to always tell us was when you get a call, sit up in your chair, smile, put a smile on your face. That's kind of like changing the vibe and setting what your presence is. You've probably heard it 100 different ways, such as you clean your workspace, not just at work, but like making your bed and cleaning your room. And these things just kind of set the tone for how you're going to move and how you're going to be. Open the blinds and that kind of stuff. If you sit in your house with your blinds closed, you probably don't have much of a presence. And that's cool if you're relaxing. But if you're about to do like a job interview, I would suggest you set the room up how you want it to be, and then you invoke, or is it evoke? Anyway, you just put it on where you turn on a certain level of whatever your presence needs to be. The difference between me being on the phone with my brother and me and him are just, cackling and being brothers, and then one of his kids do something and he got to put that dad voice on with a little extra bass on it so the kids know he ain't playing. That kind of thing. What's your presence say about you? One thing I was thinking about presence as I was trying to dissect this thing in my head, I was asking myself, what is presence? And I think one of the first things that pops out to my mind is the obvious one, is that presence is leadership. It's not being an alpha in that chest puff, barking dog, chest beating kind of way. It's true leadership in that it's not mean and it's not rash or any of that stuff. Just leadership in the way of like by example. And that as you lead by example, those that'll follow you will act in your likeness, such as a head coach to a football team. If he's tough and he's gritty, and that the team will play in kind because that's how they're coached, that's how they're trained. Generals on the battlefield, that kind of energy when you walk into a room. Like, picture the presence of somebody who knows what they're doing. They're confident. They don't have to rule over or lord it over anybody. And the way that they carry themselves just says, like, I'm that dude. Not the new age way of being like, I'm him. That's the verbal, nonsensical way, which is fun, whatever. If we're talking and playing sports, I'm talking about that people know you got that dog in you just by you showing up, by the way you dress, by the way you carry yourself. That kind of leadership, leading from the front, not barking orders at others. A whole lot of military metaphors here, but just picture it in any arena you want to put it in. When somebody really know what's up and they know what they're doing, their presence will over talk everything else. They'll sit back and let all the loudmouths do what they do, and they'll come in and they'll act correct. They'll correct the situation in a room just by them being there. And that's the kind of presence you want to have. That's the kind of leadership you want to present to then show your presence as a leader. In a lot of ways, these people are more listeners and doers than talkers. They're the kind of people, and I say I like to think myself like that in some ways. I'm probably not like that in 100% of things, but when I know what I'm doing, I go and do it. For example, like when I started this pod, I had a team of guys that I worked with on my other podcast, and starting this one was more of I know what needs to be done, and I know the message I want to get out there, so I'm just going to go and do it. There's nothing to really talk about. I'm not perpetually planning this for 2-3 years, still talking like, yeah, man, I'm gonna start that thing. No, if you ever been around me and you ever been in general conversation, if you hear me say, I think I might, within a very short period of time, you'll see that I'm doing that thing. I started that thing. I'll continue that thing, or whatever needs to be done in that arena. I try to lead from the front, even when I'm on a team by myself, being an example to myself and or my son or the team or the people that's under me at work, or whatever it is you see me do. I try to bring that presence. And if you want to change how people move around you, how people join your team and help you achieve your goals, your businesses, your relationship, then you got to lead from the front. It's as simple as being the example and then holding people around you to that same level of standard to get the results that's needed to achieve that thing. So up your presence through your leadership. So one thing I like about presence is that it it's kind of this unseen thing. It's deeply rooted, and I use that phrase on purpose because the metaphor I like to turn here is that of a tree. Being so grounded in what you're doing, being so locked into the mission that you have in front of you, to the goal that you're trying to achieve, or whatever y'all are doing collectively. Say if you're working in an organization, we know what the goal is to get money. How are we getting that money? Insert job. To be so deeply rooted and confident in what you're doing that it affects everybody else around you. That we're not wispy or weak here. We're not trying to be, changing, spineless is a word. We're not trying to be anything. We're not following the crowd. We're not joining on to the next new trend. And I don't mean in a marketing sense, because marketing wise, you got to rock with the trends because that's what people doing. But I'm talking about in the mission itself, that the mission's so clear, that the roots are so deep that a hurricane can't knock that tree down. That those roots go so deep that this forest is one of those ones, like the redwood forest out in Cali out west. That you be so grounded and just ingrained, like you got foundation that goes deep, 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 and all of that work is being done out of sight. So that when you show up to the scene, all people see is the top level. All people see is the show. They see the finished product, but they don't see the 3 a.m. nights. They see the finished product, but they don't see you working out and running those stairs in the empty arena. They see the gold medals, but they don't see the broken limbs. They don't see the cut and the cuts and the blisters and the tears and all of that good stuff. I kind of sound like a Nike commercial or a Gatorade commercial, but the point essentially being is that you're so grounded in that thing that it ain't really nothing else going on. I don't have a whole lot else to talk to you about. So when you come around me, my presence is as the goal is. The goal is the conversation. If we chatting and we having a couple of drinks, we talking about what I'm doing. And I don't mean in a selfish sense, because I'm gonna ask you what you doing, but it can't be just blowing in the wind like a dandelion, like dandelion seeds actually. It has to be grounded, it has to be rooted, sure-footed, and really deeper than what's being seen on the surface. That level of presence, of not just presence of mind, but presence of the goal I'll say it like this, not just presence of the goal, that your presence is so sure-footed you won't be moved off the spot. And I don't want to see, as you pursue whatever goal it is you're doing, that it can be negatively influenced. I'm so rooted in the pursuits that I'm pursuing. I don't care what thing someone has to say about what I'm doing. Oh man, I said this last week. What if you fail? So I learned something and I'll add to it. What if? What happens when? All that kind of naysayer nonsense, that negativity that pushes people off the square, is the kind of stuff that keeps the majority of people in their place. And I don't mean in a good way. It keeps them in the traps that they set for themselves. But my presence is sure. As the wind blows past me, I'm here. I haven't moved. The storms can come, they can go. People can come, people can go. Teams can form, teams can fail. As everything moves around me, if there was a time lapse about me and the goals that I'm trying to pursue, you'll see my presence is right there in the dead center camera, right in focus, without any movement, because I'm not letting negativity get me off of what I'm doing. I love that slang phrase of being on your square, being where you're supposed to be at. That my presence is where it's supposed to be, and it won't be moved or affected by anything that's going on around it. And as you enter into those spaces, it'll happen, and you can't avoid negativity. You can't avoid people, and you can't avoid opportunities to even get into your own head and start to sway a little bit and be a little weak in your pursuit. But you have to take that charge and like really hold on and bear the brunt of whatever forces are coming against you as you try to become successful in whatever it is that you're doing. I talked about this a little bit after I broke my foot. I haven't stopped working out. I will admit I haven't been working out as hard as 75 hard. I will start that again soon, only just because of a lack of time. I don't make excuses, but whatever. The point I was getting to was essentially understanding that setbacks will happen. People will knock you down. You'll take a chance on a thing and it won't work out. You'll add someone to the team and they won't show up. And you got to bear the brunt of all of that as it blows past like wind. You got to keep those roots deep. And part of your presence there is being so grounded that those roots hold you in your place as everything tries to move around you. So another thing that presence is confidence. So we talked about leadership, we talked about being grounded. Now it's about being confident in the choices that you make, knowing who you are. Part of that as an individual is just being sure of who you are and what you want. The other part of that is when you set that goal, knowing what that goal is, knowing the ins and outs of it, being able to talk about it like a nerd would talk about their favorite anime. But having such information about the thing that it makes you can't help but be confident. And I don't mean cocky, I mean confident. I know what it is. If you're a fitness guy and you know what your nutrition is, you know what physicality or what your body type is, you know what, and I see this is me not having a lot of that information, but some of my friends who are coaches and personal trainers and whatnot could tell you that a lot of that goes in, it's about the ins and outs of who you are and what you are and knowing what to do with that to get to where you want to be. If it was, say, a business, knowing what that business is, knowing how the ways to be successful, reading the right books or listening to the right books. It's a lot of these things where that confidence isn't fake bravado and it's just out of thin air or coming out of nowhere. It's more of the actual, let me reset my watch. So I broke the first cardinal sin of podcasting or streaming is not muting my I don't even know why my watch sound was on, but anyway, having the confidence to know what the goal is and what the mission is and having all the information therein. So once you start to either waver in your own confidence, the knowledge backs you up. You move on logic and not emotion. You move on information and not fear, which is essentially lack of information. Or excuse me, I said that backwards. You move on lack of information, which is essentially fear. You know, and that confidence that you have in your pursuit isn't that it's 100% going to be successful. It's just that you have all the proper information to apply the right moves to the board game. If you're playing chess, knowing that these pieces move like this, and when the opponent does, one thing, you can do the proper thing to react to it. Again, doesn't guarantee success, but having that level of confidence is going to increase your presence because when you walk into that room, again, you're that guy. Like you show up with that kind of energy and people respond to that. And maybe they'll help you on the mission or maybe they won't. The naysayers can pop up, but you push them to the side because not that they don't matter, their points don't matter. I don't move on the fear that you feel about the thing that I'm doing because I have all the information I need to make the proper moves and live and die by those moves, win, lose, fail, or whatever. So bringing that confidence, knowing who I am is part of that. Knowing your mission is also a part of that. One of the biggest mistakes that I see in any arena is that people enter into the arena and they don't know why they're there. Like most people just, for instance, you want to start a business. I want to make money. Okay, cool. If you want to make money, you make money. But that can't be the mission. The why. Why are you doing this? What is the point? What happens as things become unclear is that it's easier to let it go by the wayside because you really never knew what you was pursuing in the first place. I didn't start this pod to be successful or famous or anything like that. The mission with this pod is to transform who I am and the people around me and the people that join me here to help them see that there are other ways to attack their goals, essentially, to put in that work, to first be, like it's right there in the title, unfinished work. I'm a work in progress, like a art piece, and it's forming, but If the artists don't know quite what the mission is, what are they painting? Are they painting me, or are they painting Idris Elba? I don't know. But imagine trying to paint Idris and coming out with me. You messed up. Your mission was off. You should have like a reference picture or something. What is your reference picture? What is the puzzle box top of your mission, your goal? Are you in fitness to lose weight? What does that mean? How many pounds do you want to lose? Did you start that business to make money? How are you solving a problem to then tell the market so you can market it properly? Say, hey, my business does X. Similar to like Uber. Uber solved the problem. Taxis were taxis. We need an easier way to pay for these things, and we want to use an application to do it. Uber. A lot of businesses and things that exist solve problems, and those people have a very clear idea of what the mission is. And if they don't, it probably wouldn't be successful, even if they were making a lot of money. We're talking that long-term sustained success, like Apple type success, Amazon type success, those kind of things. What is your mission? What is the reference? What are you trying to do in its truest form? I'd like to be healthier is a good goal, but being more specific and say, I like to improve my blood pressure numbers is a very clear goal. And it's a smaller goal for the overall goal of being healthy, but you need to have it written down, put on a whiteboard, on your phone screensaver or something, that your presence isn't as strong if you don't know who you are first and knowing what the mission is second. And just like in the other section, not being swayed from the mission. You can't tell me what I'm here to do when I have it written down that my mission is this. That's why companies have mission statements. So what's your personal mission statement? It'll tell you a lot about who you are and what your presence is. To wrap up here, and my final points about what your presence is, what energy do you bring to a room? I repeat, is it positivity or negativity? Is it a winning attitude or a losing one? Do you have that it factor that makes people want to ride and jump on the bandwagon with you as you pursue towards whatever you're doing? I liken it to, let me get a little nerdy here, a star. Stars are balls of gas that emit a certain gravity, such as our sun, that hover other things around it. When you have presence, like the sun is our leader of our solar system. It's obviously confident. It's the brightest things in the sky. And it's rooted at where it is. It's held in its place as it revolves around the whole Milky Way. I digress. But as gravity increases, it pulls people closer. What does your gravity say about you? Is it weak and people come and go as they please in and out of your life? Is it strong and you hold people in orbit, that people want to be around you, that people want to join the mission? Is it one of those scenarios where even you don't know what it is, and maybe it's strong one day and it's weak the next day? A lot about what your presence says about you will tell you why you get the results that you get. And I'm not saying that as a brag, like I have lifelong friends and people stay in my orbit. I mean, yeah, but no, I'm talking about where the things that you pursue are worthy of people following you in them or joining you, not necessarily following you. Let's say joining. That people see you moving and they see how you work in your space and they say, I like that about that guy or girl. And I want to be like that. I want to join that. It's like a celebrity. That's why they call them stars. But essentially within the star space, as your gravity increases, so does pressure. The pressure to perform. The wins and the losses get bigger. The ideas get bigger. The failures get bigger. And you live on a knife's edge of, I could lose it all, but you could also win it all. So what's your presence say about you? Before we get out of here, I like to remind you that this show, Unfinished Work, this is episode 16, and the whole thing was about presence, but we move based on facts, not just logic, but the facts. Faith, accountability, community, teaching, and self-care. That every idea that we parse here is going to be motivational, inspirational, pushing you towards your goals, but they're also going to be based in fact, that they're going to push one of those elements forward. Before you can do any of that work, you first have to understand where you are and who you are, also, and what your mission is. Clearly defined mission parameters lead to a better chance of success. And without knowing exactly what it is you want to do, You just jumping around and doing whatever, wasting time. So if you get nothing else from this episode, understand this, that your presence is dictated by the depth of your understanding of your own mission. And that if yours is a solo project, you can affect yourself positively or negatively based on your moods and your vibes and how you carry yourself. But also you affect those around you. Who's looking up to you? Presence is about who's around you. Like I told you at the top of the show, these pastors, the leaders of this church, this the faith aspect of it and the community, as we are in communion on a Sunday, I'm watching them and seeing how they move. They affect me positively and they make me want to be a better leader. I see the confidence on these guys, and I'm not saying I want to be like them. I'm almost 40. I'm a grown man. I don't have to want to be like another man, but I like to have the effect that these men have on me, on other people. And I will hope the same for you and whatever it is that you're pursuing. So remember, follow the facts and logic and keep pursuing your goals. Keep putting in the work. We come here every week and we do this, and I appreciate y'all. This is the Unfinished Work Show, and I'll see y'all next week.